Good morning and welcome. My name is Teresa Campbell. I'm with PIA Mid-America, and you have joined the PIM and PIA Mid-America Financial Executive Council discussion on maintaining sales volume and improving margins. Now note that all attendees are in mute mode during the session so we can ensure a quality recording, which will be made available to all of our members following the program in the coming days. We really encourage you to comment and ask questions during the program, and you can do that by raising your hand at the bottom of your screen, and that'll allow us to unmute you so you can ask a question, or you can type in the Q&A field at the bottom of your screen and we'll moderate those questions for you. We want you to use the chat field at the bottom of your screen for technical difficulties. So if you have any concerns with seeing or hearing, let us know in that chat field. The Financial Executives Council has leaders from both regions that guide the programs and the content that are offered every other month for our members. It's really focused around financial reporting and compliance, data management and security, and financial policies and planning. Lots has changed in the last really 2 years post-COVID, and that's why it's important for this group to really get together and have these discussions. So with that said, Elby Carlson co-chairs the committee, and Rick Riesgraf is with us today to kick off the discussion. Rick, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Teresa. Yeah, just a word, this is a virtual meeting, not because of COVID restrictions. We've just got, like Teresa said, close to 70 different registrations from across the multi-state area, over 50 companies being represented today. So we're trying to manage this, do this virtually, but at the same time have a group chat, if you will, so we can get as much feedback and participation as possible. We've got a number of people that are shown as panelists, but like Teresa said, if you have a question and want to participate, it might be a little bit of a delay before we can get you live, but we can try and do that. And so kind of keep this roundtable impact going. We're kind of trying to go back to the pre-pandemic format here, where we had more roundtables about topics and that were relevant to the industry. So we'll see how this works. Be patient with us. Ben has a heavy load here to kind of Ben and Teresa to monitor that. So if we don't get to you right away, just give us a little time. As Teresa said, it's been over 2 years now since the pandemic, and I guess we're officially in the post-pandemic period. But certainly this period of time has created a lot of changes in the graphic arts industry, all industries, but in particular the graphic arts industry we're talking about today. We've gone from survival mode to the unknowns, to some more knowns, to sustainability, and now I think we're seeing a lot of most members probably moving into having gone through mega business adjustments, continuing to do that, kind of trying to get back to adjusting to the several new normals that we've had in these periods of uncertainty. We're definitely in a period where we are now facing two big issues, at least, if not more. But the supply chain is mostly impacted in the paper area, but other areas as well is still crazy, and labor shortages, labor costs are a big factor for all industries across America, including graphic arts, and inflation, and just the uncertainty now that we're starting to hear about potential recession, economic uncertainty. So it's been a trying time for all our members. I'm hearing a word that comes up quite often called weary. And it's been a tough row for a lot of people. And so we're hoping today that as we talk about issues that we are sharing ideas, we're sharing successes and victories in some of the ways that we've all attacked this thing, and still learning from each other. I think this group in particular came together Financial Executives Council during the pandemic, and was a help to a lot of different members to keep things going on relevant issues like PPP and that type of thing. But now we want to get back to business, if you will, and focus on some of that stuff. We have an outline on the screen. We're going to leave it up there throughout the session today. It's not meant to be all inclusive. It's just meant to be give us some ideas to talk about areas that have been impacted, some ideas that we've dealt with. So I just maybe we want to start out, but it doesn't mean we have to stay in this order or stay on these topics. Feel free to chime in on anything that you feel is helpful as we go through this. Pricing strategy is the first item up here. It's a pretty broad topic. It can involve, estimating, pricing, costing, what have we done? How are we interacting to try to maintain our profitability, our margins, trying to maintain our volumes with our customers and that type of thing. And I know there's probably a lot of people that can chime in on this, and so we'll get to that, but I wanted to turn it over first maybe to Ken. Ken is co-chair of this group with Daily Printing up here in Minneapolis. And Ken, I think you had some things to share on what you guys have done or are doing or thinking of doing in this area.
Rick, what we've done here is we've taken our estimating system and completely stripped all our paper prices out of it. The paper fluctuation, the pricing and availability has driven us to get the quote, and we're only able to hold that quote for about a day, maybe two. And sometimes we'll put a quote out to a customer and come back, and by the time they agree to it, we can't get the paper. So it has really impacted how we price things out and the length of time that we'll hold a price. Right now, we're buying paper out month, 2, 3 months in advance, and we're going to our customers that have the recurring projects saying we need to be in front of this. We need to get out and get some of the components in advance. And it has sure changed the way we communicate to our customers.
Interested to know if anybody else is dealing with some of this paper in that regard. It's such a, first of all, you can't get it, and second of all, you don't know the price sometimes until the last minute either. How are other people dealing with some of that?
Rick, if you want me to chime in, I can help a little bit with that. So in addition to what Ken is saying, price prevailing is what we went to, Ken. Instead of worrying about what our quote is today or tomorrow or next week, it's been price prevailing because of the paper market's been changing so much. We are seeing, paper changing since the time we ordered it. And we have to pass that on to our customers. Our industry's always been tight, and we just can't suck that up any longer right now. In addition to what Ken was saying about paper being ordered out, we're ordering paper all the way out through the end of the year right now. But if that paper arrives and ends up sitting on my books for more than 30 to 45 days, we're asking our customers to pay for that paper. We can't be a bank. We can't take that on. The cash flow isn't there to really be doing what we've done maybe in the past. And believe it or not, our customers have been really receptive to that, and they understand it. So just a few things that we're doing here at On Point.
One thing to add on to that too, Todd, is we have found that this has given us a chance to kind of phase out our low margin accounts. When you say price prevailing and we're showing them the price that the actual is on some of these quotes, they're going, we can't afford to do that. And that's given us a chance to kind of get our low margin accounts kind of to the back burner and getting our good customers and staying in front of them and working with them and tell them this is our price constraints. Hopefully that'll fit within your means.
Yeah, that's a great point, Ken. I think that's what's kind of, we're just calling natural attrition here right now. In doing that and just letting that just kind of roll with it. What we are seeing, which is great from the customers, is customers are saying, okay, well, I can't afford all that, but let me start to, look at maybe making my print job smaller. So for example, yesterday, we're beginning to do a lot more deduping on files right now, where customers are sending in their files and deduping them ahead of time prior to it actually going into our production stream. And in doing that, we're able to clean up orders for our customers, lower their counts that they thought that they might have ahead of time, and then offer some of that savings right again when we're talking to our customers in the first and the formal. And I think I just saw a chat just flash, and I don't know if I caught it right, but right now, everyone, I've been in the industry for 33 years. This is the first time in my 33 years that we are in a little bit more of a seat to drive that price for customers and try to get, some of those margins back. Paper allocations is helping us out a lot there. They don't have a lot of options. They can't look a lot of places. And it is a great time for us all to be getting some of that margin back and putting some of that back in our pockets. And that attrition that I mentioned may happen, but at the same point in time, it's better for the organization, because then we could pay more concentration to our really good customers too.
John, you're the one that chatted some of that in, and you mentioned right-sized pricing. Maybe can you touch on that a little bit more, what you mean by that?
Yeah, well, what I mean by right-sized pricing is that, going forward, printers have always kind of choked themselves to death, with competition and so forth. And, if it's time that we stop choking ourselves and actually try to get some of our pricing costs back in line, and, that are, relative and real. It's not an inflationary action, but this is probably the only time that I can remember since my friend days with Ben Franklin, that we have an opportunity to get our prices closer to what our margins should be, instead of what we like to dream that they would be. That's what I mean by that. We can't continue to get technology and then give away the technology by going to technology and then not being able to have the money to pay for the technology we just bought that printers traditionally do.
Yeah, another way of looking at that too, or what I've heard is everybody's in this boat, right? So they know about paper shortages, they know about labor costs. Customers are more receptive than ever. They have to get their product too, and so that pricing, legitimate pricing increases is probably better understood now, and so it's a good time to pass a lot of that stuff on and actually get it, as opposed to you put a price increase out and you don't get it. So.
Well, Rick, it's given us a chance now to, lock in our customers earlier than we ever have in the past. It's giving us a good opportunity to forecast for the remainder of the year. And it's also giving us a good opportunity to put the processes in order for the customers to make sure that they're delivering their deliverables to us on time. So for example, their data or their art. I think we all seen in the past that some of our customers come to us at the last minute. Well, with our schedules being as tight as what they're looking like right now, customers have to be on time with their data right now, and that's imperative.
Anybody done anything with cost rates or I should say estimating rates to deal with some of the escalation in inflation, wages, other costs, that type of thing?
Well, we had to go through and, printers, we have a problem with labor as always, and it's even worse now because of the labor staff now, less than 3% or so, and we only get a very small portion of that. And so traditionally we've always pirated our workers from one printer to the other. We can't do that anymore. So we've had to increase, our wages to our staff for some kind of adjustment to trying to keep the value, because they certainly are valuable to us. But also, we have gone through, and because of the suffering of the last 2 years, we've gone through and reviewed our cost analysis very tightly and have changed or modified our prices to better reflect, what our labor cost is and what our material costs are. Because if we hadn't have done that, especially with material costs, every 2 days it's changing. So we're buying up what we can and warehousing, and like they said earlier, we're trying to concentrate on the projects that we do the best, and those projects that we don't, we try to let them go.
Is that making printing a premium product that only big companies can afford the luxury of having, can afford to buy?
I don't think so. And I think my fear is that printing, us printers going to do the same thing we've done for the last 25 years, is let the market tell us that, we're not viable, we're not important, we don't have a place anymore, and that digital is it, and e-marketing and social media. And, nothing says that except for people who don't want to pay any money. The facts are that print is valuable. Print drives people to websites. Print drives people, stays in their homes 15 days on average. I mean, we are an integral part, and certainly should be tied in with digital marketing and put on QR codes and augmented reality tricks. But if they want a successful program, they need to multitask with that type of omni-channel, if you would.
Absolutely.
I guess some of my comments is, yep, we raised prices, Rick. We are going back through all of our equipment, and we're doing a deep dive on our equipment and making sure that the standards are there, the speeds are there. What happens in our industry too often is, we've got equipment sitting around that was supposed to run at, a folder is supposed to run at 3,500 an hour. And you start looking at that folder and you realize it's not running at 3,500 an hour, it's running at 2,600 or 2,800. So we're taking a deep dive into all that equipment and identifying, can it only run 2,800, or is it a trainer or operator issue? Is it goals to be set more for that job to make sure that it's running at 3,500? Do we need to fix something, or do we need to replace something? And that's the thing that we're doing throughout the entire organization. So far, we've been able to go through all of our big equipment, our big presses and everything in through our digital. And now we're in our finishing area in doing that. Another thing that we did as an organization is we've had an advertising agency tied to us all the time. So John, this may go a little bit against kind of what you were saying, but our agency for 9 years was a drain on the company, and we tried to do more of that end-to-end marketing strategy, and it just wasn't working. We weren't seeing that, and the reason part of that was, I think we also saw the direct mail studies 3 or 4 years ago that were saying that direct mail was going to decrease and social media was going to be the thing, and print is going to go away. So similar to what we heard in the early 90s, by 2000, print was going to go away. Print is still a viable media compilation to get to customers and to touch people. The couponing, the 20% off, maybe a little embellishments, those types of things. But we just weren't seeing the support through our agency and being able to tie that into our customers. So we restated our agency, and it's more in the direct mail strategy now versus an end-to-end marketing. And that's really going to prove to be a good option for us moving forward. We're a printing company. The mantra that we have is back to the basics. Rick, you mentioned a little bit about surviving through COVID. I had employee meetings the other day, and I talked to everybody about we survived, and now we need to thrive, period, moving forward.
Yeah, it's just taking a whole different effort to thrive today than it did 3 years ago, for sure.
Yeah.
Did Carl or Joe, Bill, did you guys have anything in the pricing estimating area that you guys have seen.
I like, this is Joe. I liked Todd's story about, looking at speeds and whatnot, because I think after a while we just kind of ignore them. But we, on every Tuesday, have a cost meeting, and I pull 5 dogs, low margin jobs the month before. Our cost accountant presents the estimate with the actuals. We have the bindery manager in, the print manager in, the estimators, a whole room full of people. We walk through every piece of the pre-press. We have a variance to the estimate, what went wrong, what didn't went wrong, as well as the press run, make ready, clean everything, and then all the way through the bindery. And then we do a lot of mailing, and a lot of stuff is sent over to other building mail. We go through that too and figure out what went right, what went wrong. And yeah, a lot of the time, that's the speed on that's not right. We can never go that fast, and the stitcher just doesn't work. Or they say, folding that piece, it's got a lot of memory. It doesn't like to fold. What it helps us is a lot of jobs, and I'm sure you guys have the same thing, are reoccurring things, maybe annually, monthly or something, but you learn a lot and what you can do to fix the issue, to make a little bit more money in those jobs. And especially right now, so everyone seems to be pretty flush with business, but don't take it for granted, because I don't think it's going to last forever.
Yeah, from our standpoint, most of the things have been kind of touched on already in terms of making sure your estimating quoting system is up to date with labor rates and for stock and stuff like that. I know when we send out quotes to customers, we've got statements on there too, like this is a temporary pricing, and certainly this particularly the stock amounts can and may change before we finalize the order and place the order and make statements like that. And it's just making sure as soon as we see it, any sort of increases coming through, that it's included in the quoting process. Or we have some customers who, based on contracts, can only have price increases a set amount of times a year, and making sure we're on top of those. And when we get to those time periods, that we're having the conversations about what an appropriate price increase might be at that point in time and so forth.
Been increasing our labor rates and paper just as it comes in. With each paper increase, we update our estimating system with the current pricing, and we've been giving people 30 days still. And we're fortunate that probably maybe a quarter of our business is offset print, and that part has never been the leading margin area for us. So we're trying to maintain margins in there by passing on the additional costs, and it seems to be working. The market seems to have been paying it. So we've been fortunate there.
Yeah,
This is Ryan. We're
go ahead.
We're doing a lot of the same things everybody's saying. We're trying to present a lot of this as opportunities to our clients, especially when it comes to paper, because we all know the prices are just going to continue to go up. So if they can secure the paper now and pay for it up front, if possible, they're really saving themselves money in the long run. What we're also doing, looking at equipment and efficiencies there, we're looking at our labor efficiency. So if we have, opportunity, we moved our night crew to 410s because it worked out better for most of their schedules. We're looking at doing the same thing on days to see if it's more efficient, do 410s and then add a third shift at just Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to see if we can get some labor that we're missing in the market. And it seems to be moving the needle a little bit. And so we're trying to find every opportunity where we can right now.
Trying to attract talent into the organization, you mean?
Talent and just purely getting additional labor.
Yeah.
We're ending up competing with, we in the market that we're in, we have a Facebook Meta building going up, and we have an Amazon warehouse going up near us. So you start competing with those groups, and it's hard to be competitive.
Right.
Yeah, we've done some adjusting of shifts and stuff too. We've added a 12-hour shift again to try to get some more coverage to keep equipment running a little bit more than what it had been.
So, I just heard something there. I think Ryan, you mentioned in terms of selling at things as opportunities for clients. I know a lot of the last couple of years has been reactionary to circumstances that are a little bit out, or a lot of it out of our control. But now, as we're in this particular period of time, are some of you actually taking this and trying to engage the customer? Like I think you mentioned that, Todd. You're trying to engage the customer differently, and get out ahead of this, so that there's a proactive marketing approach to this, even maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the only way. That the days of surprises are few and far between, and that's because of paper. The customers that call you up at the last minute and want to get something on, and we don't have that paper. So our sales team has done a really good job. We started the sales team on this a long time ago, when we first began to even hear about the word allocations and shortages, about selling to our customers and educating our customers. They've appreciated that. I sat with a customer the other day and was talking about it, and he said, that's interesting. Now a lot of vendors are just starting to talk about this, which really surprised me, that we all aren't out there telling our customers what the paper industry is looking like and where it's going. So we're in a power seat on some of this stuff, and we should be taking advantage of it to be able to lock up business and be able to maybe get away from that quote and hope of that RFP stuff that we've always had to deal with in this industry.
Yeah, I think that this may not, certainly we hope this doesn't last like this for a long time, but right now it is an opportunity season to take all of this and translate it into new opportunities that will, I've had some of our clients their margins are higher than they were pre-pandemic right now. That doesn't mean there's not a lot of issues facing their operation, but if you can take it the right way, it can actually translate into a benefit right now. So.
Exactly.
Inventory management is kind of a broader topic, but as it relates to paper, first of all, probably don't have as much inventory around as we did pre-pandemic for sure, but just that just-in-time concept. Is anybody, if you can get the paper, I think you get an order. Are you losing orders because of the allocation? Are you maintaining that type of thing, or what are you doing with inventory management or paper management?
I think it's working with the customers done so that they understand that if they want certain projects at certain times, they need to get ahead of the game and get orders placed well in advance, months in advance, to ensure that the stock is going to be there for us to do it. They need to plan a little bit farther ahead than maybe they're used to in the past. And part of it too is, working with them to maybe find alternative stocks that maybe are more available than maybe what they've used in the past. And relying on some of the vendors to maybe help with some expertise in that area. So between the stock vendors and ourselves and the customers, kind of, if you can, build a relationship there and some trust to maybe try some different stocks as alternatives, if you're really in a tight spot, can really advance some relationships as well.
On that alternative stock issue, and this is the wrong word, but are customers more tolerant of use the word quality, that's not the right word, but of a different standard than they were pre-pandemic? I think I'm hearing that. So again, that might create more flexibility and opportunity for members. Are you guys seeing that?
I don't think you're seeing a tolerance to, change in quality of print or service. What they are being tolerant to is maybe having to change the particular stock that they would like to have used, but their demands for quality is certainly, from our standpoint, hasn't changed any. The expectations are still high. And it is going back to customer education and partnering with them and getting them to understand, just as important as partnering with our vendors to get us, the paper that we need when we can. And as far as just in time, not this year or next year, I don't see that continuing.
One
Yeah.
thing I'd like to add to this is that it's given us an opportunity to work with our customers to be creative on alternatives. You talk about the different stock. One thing comes to mind, we have a customer that does a price book, and they always did it on canary paper. And we can't find that anywhere. So we worked with them to see if we could just print the background in yellow, and they said, yeah, it works. So getting it back to the customer to become creative with the constraints that we have is hopefully solidified the relationship as we go through this.
That's a great point, Ken. We've seen some papers drop out of what our customers have been using in the past. There's just no alternatives, some of the lower weight papers. So our customers been doing a really good job adjusting to that. They're still picky on the brightness of that paper. So we're still able to do that, but we're actually raising the basis weight, which actually obviously helps us in some margin adjustment also. The other thing that Ken just mentioned, we've been seeing that also, Ken. And instead of that canary paper that you're ordering and now you're just throwing down ink, it's probably cheaper no matter what, just to throw ink down it versus order that canary paper. That is most likely you got to get in line at a mill anyway to get it out. Those papers that had some high-end special effects to it, we've been doing some different treatments, and that could be through embellishments or different ways to print it to try to still achieve that same look without having that paper. So I will say this is the most flexible I've ever seen customers in a long time. Now, the one thing that Carl, you mentioned too is, yeah, we can educate our customers, and those guys are going to be, some of those purchasing folks. But I'm realizing also that marketing folks do not know about what's going on with our industry. They do not know about the papers and stuff. So when we're going back to marketing and we're talking about a different look, they're surprised that their purchasing people or their cronies or anybody else from their organization haven't told them about what's going on in our industry. So that's sometimes a little bit of shock and awe, but we're working through that too.
Can I tail in one more thought on this? And I don't know if anybody's seen it, but when everybody's on allocation, it seems like if you have something left at the end of the month that you haven't purchased, are people out there buying just to buy and hold it in inventory and hope that they can sell it? Or are people hoarding out there and they're buying up everything they can get? I guess I don't want to be in the business of inventory paper, but sometimes you got to have stuff on the floor just in case. And I'm wondering how people are approaching that.
I would say there are certain select stocks that we know we will go through in a relatively short period of time, that if we have excess allocation, we will take it to have it on hand, but certainly not anything and everything that is available.
We're doing some trend buying is what I would call it, Ken, where we know that the jobs are coming and we know that they're at certain times and it's repetitive. And so what we're doing is going to the customers and we're saying, based on your trend, I think we need to start buying some paper. So we're trying to get it out of that way. No, I don't want to be a paper warehouse guy either. We did have some extra stock on our floor that we sold to another customer. That was kind of creative. We had a customer looking for a certain grade, and instead of calling out and trying to get that out of our allocations, we had paper on the floor. So we actually sold that paper and then went out and put in another order based on allocation, and our timing was just perfect for it. So we were able to pick up that job. I think we got a panel or someone here that mentioned if you don't have paper, you don't have a business. I can't agree more with that comment. from Gina.
How are the relationships with the vendors, primarily paper vendors, different than they were 3-4 years ago? They working, they're working hard to get everybody what they need. And that's, but it's a lot closer relationship, isn't it, than it used to be?
From my perspective, Rick, absolutely it is. But there isn't a lot of tolerance built in. I don't know if anybody's noticed that. If you're looking at a paper and it's available someplace, the days of saying, well, could you just put that on hold for 3 or 4 days while we make a decision? There's no such thing. It's you got to make a decision sometimes when you're on that phone call. But we are seeing some of our vendors now coming back to us saying, hey, you know what, I've got some extra allocation. Would you like that? Giving us some other options there. But other than them all driving new Mercedes and BMWs, that's the only difference that I see.
Those are the
We've been well served by having a good number of paper vendors. We weren't kind of in bed with any one or two. So we were, as a smaller printer probably than a lot of people here, we were, buying from 4 or 5 different companies. So they're all trying to look out for us and do their best for us. We actually had a funny situation recently where, I think it was early 2020, we bought a bunch of stock that it turned out that the orders fell through, and we were sitting on the stock and we were trying to return it to one of the local paper vendors, and they wouldn't take it back. They said it was a mill item. So we sat on it and tried to find other uses for it, but we were still sitting on it for too long. We recently went back to them and said, well, do you want it now? And you bet, they bought 500,000 sheets. It's only 8.5 by 11, but back from us now that a year ago, they wouldn't have bought that from us.
Hopefully at price prevailing.
I don't know how well we did on it, but we were happy to unload it.
Sure.
Hey, can I ask a general question, and even to everybody that's out there, you can chat in. That secondary and that third tier of paper buying has dried up. Everybody else seen the same thing, that these extra guys that were buying stock off to everybody, that's gone. We can't go to any of those folks. They don't have any, and our purchasing guys are telling us they're getting calls every day with people trying to get paper and buy it off of us. So we're kind of stuck strictly with our big relationships we've had in the past. But just a query, is that all dried up like we're seeing it here?
We're seeing the same thing. We're not having very many people call us, but our vendors have certainly, we have our 3 main vendors, and we tried to expand to other vendors, and they don't have the capacity, and they're trying to take care of their existing customers. So it's really a very tough market if you haven't partnered properly.
I feel sad for some of our salespeople once in a while now, because they get great leads that come in. The companies are very interested in doing large quantities of print and mail as long as we can supply the paper. And there are people who weren't our clients in the past. And so we have to go back to these salespeople and back and forth all the time that we're trying to rat hole paper, so to speak, for our long-term customers. And any new customer they bring in that needs a paper allocation, it creates a danger to the rest of our allocations for everyone else.
We've seen the same thing, and we have some reps that haven't had the relationships in the business, and they're struggling to find new customers, and they find this great opportunity, but it's just because nobody else can get the paper either. So we're seeing that as well, and we're tempering it, like you said. We don't want to lose our best customers and their allocation by getting these one-off projects.
And Ken, that is just totally what's going on with us, and feel bad. And I wonder, my question is this: when we finally get out of this mess, maybe in 2 years we can get paper, are they going to stick with us, or are they going to run to the lowest price and whatever? And I don't know. You got to be careful, because you're going to rob Peter to pay Paul with that paper. You only have your allocation that you had last year. you get a nice big $50,000 deal, someone's gonna not get paper because of it. It's tough, and I do feel bad for the rest, but.
Well, it's teaching us that, or at least that sales rep is start small. Got to go, get a small digital run that's short, that we have the paper, have the allocation for it, and provide value, and then hopefully somewhere down the line we can get bigger and retain them. But that's the route we have to take now, because those big splashes, can really cripple you.
As I'm listening to that, are any of the, we talked a minute ago about, how to attract new business by marketing this, but are some of the customers taking advantage of this paper market to try to browbeat some of the printers into different strategies than they might normally take too? So I suspect some of that's going on as well.
And some of that is an education process, Rick,
Yep.
to our customers, so having been in the industry for many years, I have a friend that buys catalogs for a school district, and she contacted me and said, we love our printer, but the paper rates that they're giving us are just too expensive. I need a new printer. And my comment back was, if you're happy with your printer, you probably should stay where you're at, because you're risking not being able to get your piece printed if you jump ship from one to another based on paper rates right now, because paper supply is so tight. So if they had allocation to print yours based on them doing it last year, and you go somewhere else, I don't know where your paper, if they can guarantee that they're going to be able to get that paper. And if you play this game of bouncing around, there's no guarantee that your catalog is going to get printed or when it's going to get printed. So let's not encourage them to be bouncing around based on the fact that paper prices are not stable right now.
Somebody had mentioned, a renewed focus on run speeds, labor efficiencies that are built into the estimating. We've seen a lot of, we have most of our clients go back at least annually and kind of look at costs, but in the last 6 months in particular, there's a lot of emphasis on, okay, what were our assumptions in this whole estimating process? Because it's really much more important than ever that those assumptions be valid. And I think if you have the wrong run speeds or the wrong labor efficiencies or the wrong setup time in those estimates, I think it can really impact that pricing and the margins as well. And so we're seeing a lot of focus on just not only going back and looking at cost, but just what were our assumptions. Is that true for a lot of you guys?
Yeah, it's 100% correct, Rick, on what we got going on. So yeah, 100%.
Yeah, we're certainly looking at, estimate to actuals, after jobs are completed, and seeing where we missed or where we did good, and if we need to adjust for future processes.
I like that I forget what you called it, Joe, the 5 dogs thing that you meet weekly about. But
I wrote that down, Rick. Low dogs, and they look at 2 to 5 jobs every Tuesday. I mean, we
wrote it down.
Go ahead. Yeah, it's got to be just a huge learning. You're not necessarily even trying to fix those 5 dogs. You're going, what the next 5 is what you're trying to deal with and try to avoid or change the outcome on that stuff. So that's a good meeting, I bet. Relationships with vendors on the supply chain. We're kind of hit to this paper thing, maybe beat it to death yet, but is there anything in the actual supply chain management? I think everybody's dealt with that. So anything that we've missed talking about as we've dealt with the paper?
The only thing that I'm going to say is our purchasing people are amazing. A lot of pats on the back for the folks in my organization, and I hope everybody else out there too, because these folks are doing above and beyond what they were ever used to doing. And it's amazing that we have the talent that we do in our industry.
I would second that. But the supply chain is more than paper. It's transportation. It's
Right.
if you've got equipment you're revamping or working on, parts are extremely behind, especially like our presses are German, so some of our parts have to come from Germany. We've had to wait months to get a pump. For instance, we were able to use one of our backup pumps, but if we hadn't had that, we'd been in trouble. So it's key that you try to keep your people focused, and and they are doing a great job. They're doing an amazing job trying to think ahead and reach out and talk to any source they can get to.
We made sure that as executive team, we had a letter written by the guy in charge of sales to all our reps, because they were beating the heck out of our buyers because they just weren't accepting the fact that they couldn't get exactly what they wanted, and laid out that, hey, these people are on our team, on our side, and please be patient. Things change in a minute, so you have to be ready. And that really helped, because they were browbeaten really bad. And some of those people don't usually come and tell us that, so.
Yeah, it was hard for those reps, during COVID. That took a beating financially, and then now they got orders coming in, and now they're the opposite. They're a little aggressive.
Yeah. Somebody mentioned that customers might be a little more tolerant of a lot of different things right now, given the circumstances. But again, I like the disciplines of tweaking run speeds and tweaking labor efficiencies in the estimating. There's just maybe some discipline in the billing process that at least I've seen some clients refocus on that, shortening up the billing cycle, capturing as much as they can. Those comparisons of actual to estimates are more meaningful. Can you guys speak to some of the stuff that translates directly into billing practices that you may have tweaked or are working on right now?
What we're working on right now is trying to speed it up. Sometimes our jobs get kind of trapped out in our shipping department. They don't close them out because we're shorthanded like everybody else on the planet. But we're really focusing on, I call it the 90% rule. Let's move 90% of these tickets through as fast as we can and get that cash cycle moving faster. And then, I can refer back to Joe's dog quote, is the dogs will sit and we'll deal with those, at the end, process. But the key is to keep pushing through billing as quick as we can. And we're working on it and just keep that cash cycle going.
I'll piggyback on that too, Ken. We're doing a lot of the same thing in that, we've always been, as most printer mailers, it's production driven. And so production, if you're writing up job tickets, comes ahead of getting it into billing. We've really tried to encourage our account managers to utilize at least, a portion of their day to billing and focus on it rather than it being secondary to production.
That's a real pain point for us too, is getting the invoices turned quickly enough. It's been a struggle ever since I've been in the business. It seems like, especially the more complex projects, people bill the easy ones fast. And we have a number of people that end up thinking of billing as a monthly process. Get everything billed in the first week of May for everything that happened in April, rather than bill something on April 10th that happened on April 5th. It's a struggle, and we're meeting on it and trying to see if it's a process issue or just a personnel issue, but it's always been a battle.
So Rick,
We're
there's a
taking an
couple of
approach
comments. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say, we're taking an approach of automating our review process of every job, but we try to bill, if not daily, every couple of days. The sooner you get the invoice into the client's hands, the sooner you're going to get a chance of getting paid. Can't afford to be a bank.
No, that's for sure. John, you mentioned automating that review process. In what ways are you doing that?
Well, we review all our jobs, and of course, we have we run EPMS as our data collection system. So part of that EPMS is, we compare what the estimate was, and then also, what the performance were. And then we have every sub-report that comes out daily as to that comparison, and then we can determine if we were running long and why we were running long, and if it's billable to the customer, then we can bill it. If it's not, then we can take action to correct it.
I think that goes right to the comment that's in the Q&A, Rick, which says they're seeing a lot more changes in estimated time versus actual time, driven by more complicated jobs that are slowing the machines down. And I would say, kudos that they're recognizing it and adjusting as they go, because not recognizing it means that they're not realizing that it's more complicated and it's going to take more time, and then they're not billing for the more complicated job, and they're not collecting that lost revenue.
Yeah, we had a perfect example of that this morning, whereas it was a typical gatefold job. However, the customer, when he did the artwork, accidentally had his copy go across the crop mark. So if we hit the crop mark, we would have cut off. So we ran it oversized, and now we're going to have to, run it as an accordion and come back and make handfuls. And, that's chargeable to the customer. But at the same token, it's could have been a disaster the other way.
Right. So where do you stop and say, do you send it back to them and say, fix the file and we run it at that size? Or do you make the decision to run it oversized and charge them more for it? And it's really a matter of how well do you know your customer, who makes the call?
Yeah, we ran into that before where, we didn't do our part and catch the customer. We told him not to get within a 1/4 inch, and he went in with an H in it. So in order to put his price list in, we had to quarter fold it, which was a pain for us, but we should have caught it.
Yeah. There's a comment in the chat field as well from Jean, going back to the story about the paper that they couldn't sell back to the vendor, and then a year later they were able to sell back to the vendor, and they have some paper on the floor that was purchased in error that they couldn't return, and wondering about, potentially a direct clearinghouse among regional printers. And I can easily speak to that and say, you have access to a whole network of printers through your association, and it's happening already. So contact PIM or Mid-America, whichever affiliate you're with, and we'll be able to put the word out first regionally and then nationally. In fact, our sister affiliate in the Northeast let all of the affiliates know that they had a large amount of paper there that was roll paper in Boston, that a member had an error that they couldn't return, and it went like hotcakes. I had a member in Dallas that wanted it. We did not get it because someone closer snatched it up before it could be purchased by the member in Dallas. But roll paper is a hot commodity that we were dying to get in our region as well. If you have paper you can't return, talk to your affiliate, because I am certain there's somebody interested in purchasing it.
Yeah, I can echo that too. We've seen a lot of communication, amongst the good friendly competitors helping each other out here, and like never before, I think the industry's come together on a lot of issues, but this is another one I think they're coming together on. Let's just work together on this. We're all in it together, and it's working. Somebody mentioned scheduling. This is maybe a two-part question. There's an internal part of scheduling, and there's the customer scheduling. I know one of those notorious problems used to be, getting, your pre-press files and stuff in a timely manner compared to when the customer promised you they would get them to you. And have we seen that really tighten up? And have we forced that issue with customers and actually made a dent in that? And then alternatively, what are some of the things internally? As you know, when the job is there and the paper's there, you got to run it. Are you bouncing things? How are we getting through the internal scheduling, and what are some ideas and thoughts on that?
I know we certainly have instances where, particularly if, if there's a delay or something in getting a stock, it was supposed to be here last week and then now it's arrived today finally, and the customer needs at least some of their product, we end up having to cut in, on other projects just to at least get something out the door for them. So that we've certainly had those instances, and obviously that hurts efficiencies, and you got setup time and all that kind of stuff that then gets put into play, which hurts your overall, efficiency process. So we've run into that a fair amount.
We've
had to move some customers.
Oh, go ahead.
We've had to move some customers or give them the option to move to a different press. So if the paper's late, or if we can, instead of getting a roll stock, we can get a cut sheet stock, and we move it from one press to the other. We're having to play that game of moving stuff around just to get it out to meet their timelines. Timelines for us aren't really changing. The customers aren't doing a whole lot to give you a whole lot more time. They're a little bit understanding, but not a lot. So it's really incumbent on us to be aware of what we can do to meet those timelines.
What we've been working on is knowing the schedule, and then the variables are either the materials or the customer dragging their feet on approving the proofs. So we've been juggling, but we know what's out there and we have a good idea how long it's going to take. So we will communicate best we can back to the customer saying, we need this approval by X time, or you're going to get moved out a day or two based on what we've got in the shop right now. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but at least we've got a pretty good handle on what we know has got to go on to the press and what we know has got to get off based on due dates. So it's all about communication. And when it breaks down, that's when we have problems.
I think something that we did an okay job at last year was trying to inform the customers when we needed their files, but we caved on it every time, and it crushed us in the fourth quarter. So we've done something very different this year, where when we accept a PO from the customer, they get a confirmation back that has the due date of their files, when it will actually hit our equipment, and then the date that it'll ship. And then that's an acknowledgement back to them to say, hey, listen, based on your paper and everything else, this is when we're going to need your files, because we can't have customers, any of us right now, if we're a lot of us are busy, we can't have customers just saying, well, I can't get you my files for another week, because it just screws everything else up that you're trying to do. And what does that do then? It causes overtime, it causes other jobs to be late. So we're being pretty bold right now in trying to do that. And so far our customers been receptive. Our fall work, we've sat with all of our customers and already gone through those schedules with our customers. The only caveat, as Ken mentioned, this was the paper. We tell them when we order the paper, we let them know what the due date is. And if it doesn't show up, which is happening to a lot of us, then we let them know right away. But we typically know 2 days in advance that paper is not going to make our dock. So a ton of communication has really replaced streamlining. On our front end of our business, we have basically tore everything down on client services all the way through pre-press into our DP department before production. And we've now moved those groups together, where we got better communication and better upfront work being done ahead of time versus catching it and then having it to go back all the way through the process again. We're almost completed with this project, but it's all about the efficiencies and the speed and keeping the jobs moving north versus having them stop and go back south for a couple of days and then go back north and back and forth. So we had an issue with that we've been really working hard to get that efficiency built. for speed. We talked about billing. Billing is all about speed, and we got to get that also corrected in our organization here too. So I'm sure everybody else is looking at cash is king. We all know that.
Yeah. I don't know, the value-based pricing is here. I put that on a long time ago because based on an article I saw in some print publication, but I'm throwing it out there. I don't know to what degree it's really going on, but value-based pricing, I think what that meant was you're probably in an environment potentially where you can bill for value that you couldn't bill when it was really, really tight, 3-4 years ago, and the customers weren't tuned in as much as they are now to what I call move the mountain type efforts. And if you have gone to bat for that customer in whatever ways, and there's a lot of different ways that happens, that seem to resonate better now. And I know most jobs are quoted, but the article spoke to the fact that some printers were actually able to get an add-on in the invoice, in the price, just because of how well they performed and what they had gone through internally, and be able to translate that to a story to the customer, and the customer was very receptive to that kind of stuff. So have you guys experienced any of that upside? Nobody.
The only comment I'll make on that Rick, is our sales reps in our industry, and I'm speaking to everybody, our sales reps have value. They've self-taught themselves. We've taught them. Our production people have taught them to be an amazing resource to our customers.
Right.
When our sales reps are selling our organizations, they're selling the value in our companies. They're selling the value of our equipment. They're selling the value of their knowledge. And when our sales reps come up with different ideas and we present those to customers, and they're great alternatives and great ideas, maybe some cost savings, that's worth something. And I truly believe that. The bummer that we all will say to ourselves and as well, yeah, it's the net purchasing person or marketing person just showed it to somebody else and they stole that idea. We make it very, very well known when we're in front of our customers to say, listen, this is my idea. We came up with this. I'm not going to allow you to just go send this out for bid for everybody else. And if that's what you're going to do, I'm not going to give you my samples, or I'm not going to give you. That's a little pre-selling at the beginning. It's a little bold, but we deserve that. Our people deserve that. And I back it up 100%. And I think we should all expect that of our customers, that we have value. We're not selling widgets. We're not selling some nuts and bolts online. We have a custom-made product, and we need to get paid for that. That's fair.
I want to add to that. I guess we went to value-added pricing. At least I did back in the 80s when the world went upside down and it flipped from being a seller's market to a buyer's market, and still hadn't recovered. But the other part of that is, you can't, today especially, we cannot deal with those price buyers. Those price buyers need to go someplace else because you don't have the time to mess with them. Let them go be somebody else's headache so that you can keep as much value that you deserve.
And there is a place for those that are buying on price, and those are the portal printers, those that are ganging it together, those where they're not interested in hand holding or relationship building, and it's less expensive because they're not doing that part of it. And if you're doing the relationship selling, then you have a higher value and should be paid a higher value for it. There's a comment in the Q&A that asks, they're curious if there's been customer pushback on paper prices. Though they haven't seen order levels drop verbally, it sounds like some are at their peak price change in a short time frame. And I would say I have members that are saying to me, this last price increase on paper really had the customers saying, okay, we're at our breaking point on these price increases. We don't think we can take anymore. They still place the order, but the printer is saying, I don't know how much more my customer can take on price increases. Have you seen the same thing on your end?
We've seen a little bit of it, but mostly those are, you know, they fall back to their buying by price to start with. You know, they want you to warehouse the paper for them and pre-buy it, not charge them for it. And, you know, I can't do that. I don't have the room, and I probably can't get the paper, that much paper anyhow.
Well, and are they lowering their quantities then to be able to still purchase it? Yes, Todd's shaking his head.
Yes, I was gonna make a comment, Teresa, that's what we're seeing is customers saying that, well, I can't run as much as I wanted to, so I'm gonna do this, but you know, I'm gonna do a different group. I'm gonna do a group that I get more impact out of anyway, so this might be a good thing. So they're coming up with their alternatives there too. I don't know. We're all seeing our costs go up. So, you know, we just talked about, you know, warehousing and paper and everything. And we can't be a bank for our customers, unfortunately. We can't store all kinds of product because warehousing costs is going up. You know, we've had to go to a public warehouse to store some products now. So that's an added cost. We just can't do that. And it's forcing our customers to look at their current inventories and begin to throw things out, which has been kind of nice as of late, getting rid of that inventory. So it's really hard. And I keep saying being bold, but we need to be a little bit bold right now in the industry and where we're at. And our sales reps are doing some great work. And the reps are kind of having a good time at being bold now too.
Well, the demand is out there for sure, given the economy and recovery for whatever we're going through right now. This isn't necessarily on the list, but as this recession talk overtakes everybody, anybody seeing customers nervous? And if so, how are you starting to react to any of that, given that we're in the middle of trying to pass these price increases on and experiencing that extra costs? Are you worried about what that will do or managing for that at all?
Rick, my only point is I mentioned natural attrition earlier. And that might be what we're going to be seeing a little bit more of those folks that just can't afford to do that and they want everything at a super cheap price. They may begin to go to alternative measures. And at the same point in time, I think we all are more interested in taking care of our good customers, good paying customers. So some of that might help a little bit, but I will say I am concerned about a few of our bigger customers in the industries that they're in, that by inflation could hit them on some churn. And that would in turn then affect us too.
Yeah,
I would agree, Todd. I think some of this is industry driven. So what verticals you're in are really going to somewhat determine the impact on your business.
Yeah, and some segments are getting hit harder than others already for sure, and that's already spewing out to the impact on the printers. So we're going to see more of that the way it certainly looks. None of this is taming down. The supply chain isn't supposed to get corrected for a long time yet, and price increases, and everybody's seeing what's going on with energy costs and that type of thing. So we're, you know, it's still a wild ride. We talked about billing, so maybe that change order thing was covered in there, unless somebody had something unique to talk about on that. I just talk a little bit about maybe what changes, innovations, efficiencies in the production area that have helped you know, maintain margins in a difficult time and try to make up for some of this stuff. I just, you know, I know COVID did wonders in terms of turning the world upside down with new types of thinking. And we're seeing that continue on. So I'm just interested to see if there's any recent innovations or things that have come up in the production arena that have helped.
Well, I'll say this, we took in heart, quite a bit, a few months ago, PIM sponsored several month presentation on lean manufacturing, which we all do to some degree, I think, but we took that to heart, but we've also taken it past that. We've now gone into, cleaning out, making room in our warehouse for paper and stuff and getting rid of the junk that we've kept around for years, but also talking to our leadership to quit trying to make decisions by themselves, but to take it and go back and talk to the workers and the staff that are actually doing the job front line and use their expertise and their knowledge on how to gain those efficiencies that we really need now. So, this is something we talk about bi-weekly with the leadership, and during the off weeks, we hope they're talking to their team. And so far, it's been working well. And we're still trying to update and change out and modify with technology, updating equipment that's needed to be updating, not waiting and trying to get another extra year out of it, get the orders in. And that's what we're doing right now.
I think what John just mentioned a little bit about is we've really made a large step in empowering our managers and our employees on looking at our equipment and understanding how they do things. I think the folks that are running the equipment or they're running the processes have more knowledge of anything than any other executive or manager would ever have. So we begun to really empower our employees, and they're bringing us ideas, and it's simple stuff sometimes, you guys. It's like, instead of that fork truck passing me 3 different times, why doesn't it just drop off a pallet on their way back and I can keep on running versus waiting 30 minutes? Or we were looking at some high-speed inserting equipment, and then one of our managers in our mail operation came up and said, well, I think we could, by doing some alterations to a couple of our current pieces of equipment, if we put some cameras on them, we can get a couple of our pieces of equipment to go up to that high-speed throughput and get that all. And that's about $100,000 investment for us to do that versus $625,000 for a brand new high-speed inserting line. So it's kind of fun. It's empowered our employees, and we're bringing them then into some manager meetings, and we're talking about these, and then we're bringing them to the top. And there's some really fun ideas that are helping our organization versus us just going out spending a ton of money on capital. I know that a lot of you folks are more interested in keeping things running the way that it is and try to make some money versus going out and making some big capital purchases right now. And that's really what our drive is and our strategy as an organization right now.
What we've tried to do, we're employee owned, Todd. So our employees know that they're, part of the process and trying to include them. But as we look at the equipment and talk about replacements and changes, we try to build teams that need to look at that equipment. So right now we're in the process of looking at some bindery equipment, whether we repair it and keep limping along, or do we replace it, and what do we replace it with? So we're in the process right now of putting together a team that's going to involve the production supervisor, but it's also going to involve the people that are actually going to run the equipment, and also some other peers that can kind of put some input. We did that when we changed out our press, and it paid off tenfold because we had buy-in from the people that were part of the process, and we got what we truly needed. So it goes a long way to involve the people, and they're the ones that are on the day-to-day. They see what's right, what's wrong, what's needed, what we can get by without in order to get the projects through here.
So in other words, Ken, you have a lot of people with stopwatches around their necks. right?
Not yet, but ideally we could.
Okay.
But no, right now, the employees, they know, and if someone's running into a problem, they'll lean on one of their peers and say, I can't get this thing to line up, or I can't do this, and then come at it from a different angle. And for the most part, they can figure it out. And that's the biggest thing too, and this is gonna go off into another tangent, is about, we don't want that knowledge to leave the building. And we need to get people in here that we can transfer that knowledge to. And I know we've had people retire that we've lost that skill set and it walked out the door. And that is something we need as an industry in whole, is to retain that. And it's something that we've got to work at to bring up that next generation of craftsmen that can do what we're doing right now. Because it is a definite learned skill, and hopefully we can transfer some of that knowledge.
Yeah,
A quick point on that, Ken. I don't know if anybody's seeing, but we're starting to see job fairs start happening again in colleges. Ken, here locally, you and I sit in the same city. There's a couple job fairs coming up in June that I'm actually going to also, to show my face and talk to people, just trying to get different folks coming into our industry. And so just everybody, I think, just watch for job fairs or anything that you can get yourself involved with, and trying to pull some people into the industry. Because Ken, I just had, 33-year-old press operator retired 2 weeks ago. So it's happening constantly.
We're looking even lower. We're going into the high schools.
Are you? Okay.
Some of these kids, they don't want to go to college. And when you do get a kid out of college, they want to come in at 50, 60 grand. And, right now, to learn the skill, you can't do that. It's price prohibitive. So we're trying to do wherever we can. And we tried to work with the PIM and get, their job, workforce development thing going, and it dead ended. And we thought we had something going. We were on the front end and it went away. So we're trying on our own now.
Well, I hope that comes back, because I was really interested in trying to work with PIM and the state of Nebraska and everybody else, because we do have to go to a younger audience. And I agree, if you can get them in coming out of high school, the VOTEC schools, job fairs, you got to explain to them, hey, we're a high technology business. We're not a dirty business. We're ever changing. Jesus Christ, I can't tell how many times I've been retrained in this thing in my career. And it's an exciting field, and it's an untold story now.
Kind of on this point, I just wanted to, I had heard a few weeks ago, it's about some of the VOTECs, like maybe Stout and some of that, their curriculum is changing, and it isn't the same resources it used to be. And I think Teresa, down at the gala in Kansas City, I ran into Doug Younger from Pittsburgh State University, and he just wanted us to keep him in mind, because he had some people at that banquet, young students that had gotten some awards and that type of thing, and he said, remember, we serve the entire middle part of the country, so this fits both PIM and PIA as a resource too. So that's just a plug for Pittsburgh State University. He doesn't know I'm doing that, but so.
Mid-America members might give you a run for your money, though, if you try and steal those students away.
Oh, I know, but he was aware of that when he told me to. So
hot commodities, those students.
Yep.
Yeah, locally, Dunwoody Tech dropped their program.
Right.
Anoka and Hennepin Tech dropped their program, and University of Wisconsin Stout has dropped their creative program. So those were all feeders. And I actually called both of the two instructors that I knew at University Stout and said, we're hiring, if you guys know anybody. And I sent them emails, and I never got a response back from them. Yeah. So that means they have nobody. apparently.
But Bear Ed, we have one intern right now from Stout and another, but that's good to know because that we rely on them big time. We've got a lot of are they blue golds or something?
Yeah, the blue golds. Yeah, just go online, Joe, and take a look, and you can see that it's been that program's been suspended.
Well, thanks for letting me know. That's a bummer.
Yeah.
Huge bummer.
But to Ken's point on going to the high schools, that's what also this guy said too, is that is a very lucrative source now. And the kids are more open to it now than ever. I can speak from personal experience. My son went into the trades and they just have a lot of opportunities, more than they've ever had, so.
Oh, definitely. They've got an opportunity to make an awful lot of money with
Yep.
minimal amount of investment. And that's cycling back to that brain drain I was talking about is, I want our employees to transfer that knowledge. And, we're looking at different ways of funding it. And, that's what we're going to have to do in order to keep this thing going. Because our average age in our bindery is about 55. And that, gives us maybe 10 years if we're lucky before it's got to all be replaced.
Well, investing in your people is the strongest thing you can do, because I got to tell you, we can all say, this is what we think our company is and how our image is. But the truth of the matter is, it's our staff that make our image. They're the ones who are talking to the customers. They're the ones who are out there promoting it, taking ownership, and in more fear you can drive out, more cross training you can do, strengthens their buy-in, and we all need that.
Yeah, turnover in our industry kills any efficiencies or innovations that we do. If we're not able to retain people and we're constantly training, it's just going to kill our efficiency.
So Rick, we have about 7 minutes to the top of the hour. I want to make sure that if anybody had comments or questions that they wanted to add, now is definitely the time to do it. If there's any topics that you wanted to bring to light for the panelist or yourself, Rick, I just want to make sure we stay on track with the timeline.
Thanks. Yeah, again, this wasn't an inclusive list, so if there's stuff on your minds, get it on the chat thing here right now. I did have a question that wasn't on here. Interested to know, Joe, you talked about the 5-dog job on the review, but what about in this time and as things have bubbled out, looking at, I'll call it dog markets, areas where you were in a bigger way, and now you see all opportunities, things are going better, or there's better opportunities in other markets. So has there been a shift? Are things going on that will help overall the company maintain its margins and profitability that way? Have you guys run into that at all?
Well, the high-end luxury market, it's been a mainstay for Boulder forever, but as we've gotten more into mailing and digital, our margins are going up, and there's always the fear that you have a rework on a monster deal that just makes you lose your butt. And I've noticed that, we were really fighting 3-4 years ago for these jobs and losing them maybe to an Italian printer or a Canadian one that would use a different paper and pull the wool over their eyes. And now recently they've come back to us for this fall for a monster deal, but the outsides are so huge. The paper, I'm not certain how we're going to get it. We would definitely have to be paid ahead of time. We're trying to slowly shift. It's hard to say no to a deal this big, right? But it's just the opportunity cost for maybe focusing on something better. I mean, toner on paper, it's such a fat, high margin. And it's more of an internal struggle kind of with the culture of the company and where you come from. So we're really trying to, without getting into it too much, try to get the beauty and the luxury off as much and back to what we really make money on, to be completely honest with you.
Okay.
I think, Joe, just I mentioned earlier, getting back to the basics and not stretching ourselves out there. You mentioned these high risk jobs. Are they really, really worth it? And then have tight time frames and everything else. So I think just we're looking at things a little different right now, and the basics of just continuing our digital direction and with their digital web or variable web. I mean, it's a lot about one-to-one marketing, omni-channel, speaking to many people with the same voice, but in different ways. And we're looking at a lot of that too. Trying to really understand without taking a lot of risk right now where things are going to head. I'm not interested in buying a bunch of fancy, shiny equipment that's just going to sit in the future. So I think we're all thinking that same thing. Where do we invest our monies, and is it pie in the sky, or is it the basics?
I have a question I'd like to throw out to people, and if there's any feedback here, but does anybody have any ERP systems that they would write home to mom about that just they think are the best system out there? For instance, we're using Midnight. I don't know if anybody else does that. But I'd be curious as to any other management information systems that people are using in the mailing and print industry that they're happy with. Kind of off topic here. Sorry, Rick.
No,
We're implementing Avanti right now. And
Is that Slingshot?
Yep, and what I'll let you do is, we're not there, I can't answer that question to let you know that if it's better than EFI. I just know a mailing ticket in Monarch I've been told that it's a bear. So I tell you what, we can circle around in 6 months or so and call me personally, and I can tell you how it's going.
Awesome.
I'd be interested in that as well, Joe. We're on Midnight as well, and the inventory system and some of the job ticketing seems a little cumbersome, I guess is the best word.
Speed too. We're kind of struggling with just the speed in Midnight, the print calculators and everything.
well, yeah, you guys keep everybody in the loop on those types of things, but maybe that's a topic for a different day. So thanks for asking that, Bill. We are coming up to the end of our time now, so I really appreciate this was our first foray to try and do a roundtable when there is no round table in front of us. So I think it's worked pretty well. So any ideas that you guys have on how to improve that format, certainly shoot us emails and let us know. I appreciate the lively conversation and the contributions that everybody made. And if we've missed something, the beauty of this is you can send an email and we can connect up with each other or get an answer. So let's make sure to do that. Teresa or Ken, did you have anything else to say before we wrap it up?
I'd like to add that we're in the process of pre-planning these meetings and trying to get a calendar out so that we can get everybody looking forward and block off this time. Through the last 2 years, through the pandemic, I'm kind of jaded because I'm on the committee, but this has been really helpful. It gives us a forum to talk to other people that have the same everyday problems that we're all going through. And it gives us a chance to connect with others that are going through them. And our goal is to get information out to the industry. And I think we've done a pretty good job the last couple of years. And I'd like to continue it. And we're working hard at bringing up topics that are going to be important to everyone involved. And we're always willing to take on topics that are pain points for you in your business. And, we'll try to find the experts, or we'll try to be the experts and answer questions and make our businesses better. Because that's what all this continuing education is about. How do we get better?
Yeah, thanks, Ken. Yeah, we're shooting for a schedule of every other month, roughly, to try and put on topics. We've met on a maybe list of future topics that we're going to send out to everybody and get some feedback on that, get the next meeting set here. So like Ken says, we get them on our calendars, that always helps, because we're all busy and that type of thing. So I appreciate all the inputs, and certainly give us any feedback that you have after this session. So thanks.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye now.
Take care.